This is The Raid, exposing the dark world of America's deportation machine. I'm your host, John Carlos Frey. On the podcast today is Patricia Solorio. She's the Associate Director at the Fund for Santa Barbara, which is a non-traditional community foundation that supports organizations and groups working for progressive social change in Santa Barbara County. The fund is dedicated to helping find solutions to current and emerging social problems and issues that challenge society as a whole. Although most of us understand the immigration raids are primarily happening in Minneapolis, apprehensions continue to occur across the country and increasingly in Southern California. Patricia and the foundation has helped to fund advocates in support of the most affected by the raids. She's on the podcast today to discuss the ongoing immigration enforcement activity in her region. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
It's nice to have you here. So I just wanted to start with you giving me a little background of the organization, and you are a philanthropist. You work for a philanthropic organization. So why don't we just start there?
Yeah. So I work for the Fund for Santa Barbara. We're a small community foundation in Santa Barbara County. And it was started, 45 years ago by women, right, who saw the need to the motto is change, not charity. So really focusing on systems change and not the traditional direct service. And so, these women started this organization modeled after Liberty Hill. That's here in Los Angeles. And we've been part of Change, Not Charity since. And the focus is, again, systems change, funding organizations that are doing, organizing work, just on the ground work. And so we're very much like our nonprofit partners in that we raise all of the dollars that go out every year as well. So
it's not some kind of a fund or...
No, we don't have deep pockets of family, money. We didn't inherit anything. We have a very small endowment of like $2 million, which is, a fraction of what most family foundations have. And even so, we've, in the last year, increased the payout from the required 5% to 10%. And we've been encouraging other foundations to do the same, and some, kind of followed suit. We followed Marjorie Casey Foundation, and then encouraged other foundations in Santa Barbara County to do the same. And the McCune Foundation and a few others have increased, if not the full doubling, maybe 1%, but because their endowments are significantly larger than ours. The dollars came along. So, and that was really in response to what's happening on the ground around, I want to say immigration, but really is democracy.
Well, can we go there?
Sure.
Okay. So the podcast is called The Raid, which is focusing primarily on what we're seeing in immigration enforcement. Mm-hmm. And I use that term loosely because it doesn't look like immigration laws are being enforced necessarily. This looks like an all-out assault on the immigrant community. So you have some funding in those circles?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been able to fund over $1 million, which is huge for us. I think annually we typically fund a total of $600,000.
Wow.
And so last year we were able to fund just over $1 million just to immigrant rights work. And so beyond that, we've expanded from just Santa Barbara County to San Luis Obispo and Ventura County. And so this is an area that is historically marginalized just generally by larger foundations. There's not a lot of foundation dollars that go into this community. So if we're talking Ford Foundation or some of the Irvine Foundation, they have funded in that area, but it's kind of a hit and a miss. And then they might change initiatives, and it doesn't match, and then we have to kind of reframe.
When you say funding for immigrant rights, are you allowed to be more specific?
Sure.
What is the actual work that you're funding?
Yeah, so we're funding rapid response networks, immigrant legal defense, mutual aid groups, anything that has to do with supporting activists on the ground and the folks who are being affected directly.
And the people who donate to your fund, where you gather resources from, are they primarily concerned with immigrant rights or with democracy, you're saying?
I think it's both. I think that folks have donated to the Fund for Santa Barbara, historically, because we work on systems change, right, on policy, and encourage organizations to do work that addresses systemic issues. And they've increased their giving, and our individual donors have gone up because they see the value in addressing immigrant rights, because they see the connection to how this isn't exactly about immigration. I've said for some time, it's more about democracy, and they go after the most vulnerable, right? So trans and immigrants and women, and all of those are areas that they're just kind of test driving to see how far we'll let them go.
When I think of the northern part of Southern California, Santa Barbara, Ventura County, and you said San Luis Obispo. Mm-hmm. I don't think of ICE there. I'm assuming that you're funding these immigrant rights advocates because there's a need. There's stuff going on, right?
Absolutely.
Can you tell me about what's going on?
Sure. There are 2 processing centers, one in Camarillo and one in Santa Maria, which is in northern Santa Barbara County. And
processing is where immigration officials apprehend, take people to process before they go into a detention facility or be deported?
So they'll process them there. They're not supposed to keep folks overnight.
It's not a detention facility.
It's not a detention facility. It's a processing facility. And then they take them to usually Los Angeles. And from there, my understanding is they're seeing who's going to sign voluntary deportation. And those who don't end up in Adelanto or other places.
So you have 2 processing facilities in the region that you work with it. Okay.
Yeah.
So that means that they're apprehending people?
They are absolutely apprehending people. So in the Tri-County area that I mentioned, in Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo, there's been over 1,400 apprehensions just in 2025. It just over the holidays, over a 2-3 day period, there was like 150 people. And so you may have seen a national news Glass House raid, and that was 300 people in one day, approximately. But yeah, so we are having a lot of activity. But historically, we've had this activity for a very long time because that ICE processing center has been there for years. And so that it's not anything new, but the activity has increased. And we have ICE agents who live and work and have lived and worked in our community for a very long time. And in addition to that, we're having people come from out of the area, these new ICE agents or Proud Boys or whoever they are.
What do you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, they're poorly trained, right? They don't, they're coming in and being super aggressive. And I think that that's something different that we're seeing. In Santa Maria specifically, my understanding is that the ICE agents were very sleuthy. They'd been doing this work in Santa Maria for a long time, so they would go in, identify the person, grab them, and leave. It was very fast. It was not messy. And the messiness was happening in other areas.
You're talking about during the Biden administration or before, or something has changed since Trump?
Right.
Okay.
So since the activity has increased since last year.
In 2025.
Yeah.
And you're saying they're sloppier or more cruel?
Yeah, they're sloppier and they're crueler. Mm-hmm.
So my understanding of the region, Santa Maria especially, is primarily Latino.
That's right.
That's
yes.
farm workers.
That's right. Farm workers. The majority.
They're rural communities.
We're the largest city in Santa Barbara County. I always like to remind people it's 100,000 plus. Very large population of Latinos and a large community of farm workers in Santa Maria and the surrounding areas in Guadalupe, Lompoc, Napomo, all of that area. And a lot of undocumented folks, a lot of indigenous folks. And so they are the most vulnerable if we're talking about the Latino community that is undocumented. They're not white presenting, right? And so it makes them very vulnerable.
And Ventura is similar, right?
Similar,
There's a lot of farmland.
Oxnard.
Oxnard.
Yeah, in Oxnard. And so those are where the two processing centers are.
And also raids. They're
and
also
raids. Yeah, we've had raids on the fields, both in Oxnard and Santa Maria, and it's not about the economies. Like sometimes I get frustrated when I hear people talking about how
what are we going to do without our farm workers?
Right. What are we going to do without our farm workers? Right. Because I think that we need to reframe it in that these are humans. These are like people. And it's not just about what we can extract from them, but like the simple value in being able to live peacefully as they're contributing to our economy, because they are, and we will fold without them. I mean, I on occasion go out on rapid response, or I go out on patrol with some of the volunteers. And I talked to folks who were passing out red cards and information to.
What is that? What's
the red card? Is a know your rights. So it's a script and kind of like so that they know their rights, and we pass out those cards to folks on the ground. And I was speaking with a farm worker, a mayordomo, right? So like the supervisor, and he's really worried about how they're going to get people to go to work, because the harvest season is coming up, very shortly in the spring. And he's worried that he's not going to be able to get people to go to work. And he himself was undocumented, and their employers are worried, right? The employers who hire are worried, contractors, subcontractors, and they're training, right, their folks to they put folks who have documents out on the roadway to make sure that they're keeping gates closed, or they're parking cars across road entries to fields so that they can protect their employees.
Are people showing up, or will people show up?
I mean, people need to eat, right? Like everybody.
Yeah, but can you imagine being a farm worker and this is your occupation? You've finally got a foot in the door and you're here in the United States. You found a job. It's not a great job. Maybe it doesn't pay well, but you got a job, and now you're under threat. That's the choice, right?
That's the choice. And so they, I think they're doing a good job of like organizing caravans to go to work. Folks are picking up. I mean, even some of the contractors have vans where they go to neighborhoods and pick up workers and take them in. But everybody needs to work, and they need to pay rent. They need to feed their children, just like everybody else.
What is happening in Santa Maria and Oxnard as a result, or Santa Barbara County, the community? I noticed here in Los Angeles when we had the raids in the summer, all of these businesses were shuttered.
Yeah.
The streets were empty. And I even hate to say it because that reference to these laborers, but I'm used to seeing fruit vendors on the corners and people selling flowers when you get off the freeway, or, this kind of community that you're used to seeing these people. It's vacant. So I'm just wondering, are people running scared? Are they not taking their kids to school, or?
Yeah. So my understanding is that, folks are not sending, especially when there's been like raids, and then days after, attendance will go down. But I live near an elementary school and a junior high, and moms are walking their kids to school eventually. And it does seem to be less, but I'm constantly just... I'm just gonna try not to get emotional. I just admire these moms, right, that are putting themselves at risk by walking out.
I'm just thinking of the images I saw today of a 5-year-old boy.
Oh gosh, I saw that, yeah.
Who was left alone, whose mother was taken, or being used as bait.
As bait, yeah. I saw that. And it's not unusual. There are multiple stories of children being left without their mother and their father. And, maybe with an older sibling or with an aunt or an uncle or a neighbor. And so, unfortunately, these are not unusual situations. That they're using them as bait.
I hear they're starting to step foot in schools.
Yeah. Just today they passed something. They don't need a judicial warrant to go door to door. So, what we're seeing in Minnesota, they will be coming door to door. And that's just the reality of where we're headed.
You work with a philanthropic organization that tries to alleviate some of the stress and support some of the individuals who are trying to do the hard work on the ground. And it's sounding so cynical on my end, but sometimes I think we're just kind of band-aiding everything. You just said they're going to start blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I mean, can you keep up?
We have to. I mean, there isn't a choice. I think that the other side has an infinite amount of resources, and we have people power, right? And we have hope, and we have joy, and we have...
What's left to do?
We're on the right side of history, and I think what's left to do is, talking to the bystanders, right? Tapping into defectors. I know that there are folks, for example, working for ICE that have, siblings, children, parents who don't agree with what they're doing. And so we need those bystanders to start, making their lives, like shaming them or, just talking to them. And we need to start getting defectors. Bystanders need to just, if moms can work up the courage, to walk their children to school, and that puts them at risk, people who are documented white and safe can do more, right? Like, we all need to tap into the courage to step up, because it is that's going to make the difference, getting people not just out in the streets, but oh my gosh, if there's boycotts, please participate and don't, give in to your need for a Starbucks blonde roast or whatever that, because as little as that it feels like it's not significant, collectively it is significant. And so we just need to stick to it. Boycotts are what worked, right, in the civil rights movement. And so we need to continue, and we need to press all of the buttons.
You don't sound like a philanthropist to me, or working for a philanthropic organization. You sound like an activist.
Well, I came from activism.
But it's kind of the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Using dollars to help, or using your body to help, or using
Absolutely.
your voice to help?
All of it. All of it. There's not anything that we should not do.
What about the people then? Of course, you just talked about the people, the moms that maybe need to step in and also help. But you had mentioned to me other philanthropic organizations or philanthropy in general.
Yeah.
Where are they afraid? Are they not showing up the way you would like them to?
I mean, I think that there are some that are definitely see the need, and traditional philanthropy. Philanthropy wasn't created to. I mean, I know a lot of people will not understand this, but it's a tax write-off for a lot of wealthy people, and it really wasn't about helping people, right? It's about
either I give this money to the government, or I give it to a library,
right,
or
and
whatever.
Make myself feel better about,
put my name
whatever.
on the building. Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people who work in philanthropy don't understand that. And so I think that our role in philanthropy, hopefully, is to organize philanthropy and influence philanthropy, and in any way that we can. I mean, I think someone shared once that we have an oversized influence in the work that we're doing, because we're kind of pressing. We're going outside of our bounds in what philanthropy typically does. And so we're there to follow the lead of the activists on the ground. Tell us what you need, and we're either going to help, we either have the dollars to help address the issue, or we're going to find them.
It's philanthropy with an agenda?
Yeah. Doesn't all philanthropy have an agenda? Yeah.
But you want active results. You want to change the course of history. You want things to be different.
Absolutely. And we've seen that happen. So the Fund for Santa Barbara used to address issues when it first started around domestic violence, because domestic violence used to be taboo to talk about, right? Like, it was controversial. Like, domestic violence was controversial.
Really?
Well, absolutely.
It's a woman's issue, right? Only women could talk about it?
No, and women didn't talk about it, right?
No.
There was an amount of shame that was attached to it. What happened in a marriage stayed inside. Cops would show up and just didn't do anything about it. Right, absolutely. And so the Fund for Santa Barbara started funding domestic violence organizations to educate police officers, right? That systems change, how they address a call when they show up and see that a woman has been, beat up. And so educating the police on how to address that. And so that was controversial. AIDS was controversial. So those are the types of things that the Fund for Santa Barbara has funded historically. And then, does it happen overnight? Absolutely not. System change does not happen overnight. But this is what we're here to do, is invest in the long haul and really looking at, Earth 3, right? And so
We're on Earth 2 now.
We're on Earth 2.
You want to get to Earth 3?
We want to get to Earth 3.
Well, let me go back for 1 second, and then we'll figure out what Earth 3 looks like in a second here too. I am under the impression that those that care, those that get it, those that may have skin in the game, maybe they're Latino or come from that background, are in. For the most part. Not always. But there's a large portion of corporate America and philanthropic America that don't want to be in. They're either afraid of backlash. Well, are you at liberty to talk about that? Because if there's a time to do this, with what we are seeing, this is the time where you better write that check. Or Home Depot better say, get out of our parking lots, or Target better say, no ice in our stores. But they're all kind of hanging on the sidelines.
Well, I think that our role, or what I'd like to see us, and we are doing, is if you're afraid and you're sitting in a boardroom, right, or working in philanthropy, that is a very, very privileged position to be in. And I consider it a privilege to work in philanthropy and not feel like I'm stifled in what I can say because of the foundation that I work with. But there are other folks who are not in that position because their boards don't agree. Even if staff of philanthropy sees the need, their board is not on board, or their donors are not on board, and they're just kind of standing on the sidelines to see, what's going to happen. But I think that we've seen a shift, right, over the last year.
Good.
And so I think that I've seen more foundations kind of see the need, even if they're not won't fund rapid response directly, they might fund the mutual aid and the need of families. And so people are just going to find their lane, and hopefully we're going to keep bringing people along. And that's individual donors, that's community, that's philanthropy, that's everybody.
Don't you just want to shake them? Well, what we're seeing is tragic. What we're seeing is violent. What we're seeing doesn't feel like freedom to me. It feels like a completely different country. Yeah. I feel like I'm in a police state and I'm watching some kind of ethnic cleansing here, because there's only a particular population that they're going after, and they look like you and I do. Yeah. Maybe darker skin, and so I'm watching it in real time.
Yeah. I think that there are days when my rage is barely contained. And I think there are more days when I see the value in not just inviting people into the tent, but growing the tent. And
bees to honey kind of thing?
Yeah, because what am I going to get out of shaking somebody? Even in my own family, right? I have folks that were supportive of this administration and maybe voted for them. Not maybe, absolutely did vote for them. And I think that shaming them to a certain, it's like that's not going to bring them closer. Kind of asking if they're ready to hear more and, you know, finding common ground. I mean, you cannot live in Santa Maria and not know and say that you don't know anyone who's undocumented. Nobody. I would be shocked if somebody could say, oh, I don't know one undocumented person.
I was listening to gubernatorial candidates today for California advocating on behalf of the undocumented. That is taboo in the right. Right? The undocumented, the people here without papers, are the invaders. They're the people stealing from you and me. They're the rapists. They're the, you know, there's this whole list of criminality, and they're spending billions of dollars to get rid of them. And here, I'm hearing you say that you're going to advocate for them.
Absolutely. The message, those are just false narratives. Those are absolutely false narratives, and we know it. They contribute much more than they take away from the economy or from the system. I mean, they talk about going after the worst of the worst. Well, I'm sorry to inform everyone, like, the bad news is that the worst of the worst are the gabachos, right? Like
the ICE agents themselves are worse?
Well, no, the gabachos, like white people
guys.
commit
Yeah.
crime. Like, but, you know, there's a lot of ICE agents who are Latino, right? Like, there's a ton. With accents. Like, I can't wrap my head around it, but that's happening, right? Because they've managed to, right, what the other side does is they create wedges, and they've found a way for people with documents to otherize undocumented people, right? Newly arrived people, when they themselves arrived here.
Are you suggesting that this fervor to deport millions of people, I think the quote is 1 million a year, something like that, I think that's the number, is not really about deportation?
I mean...
Is it about white supremacy?
It's about white supremacy. Absolutely. It's about white supremacy, because they're starting with the most vulnerable, and they will get to those who have papers. I mean, you've already seen they're trying to do what they're trying to do with the 14th Amendment and denaturalization. And so, you know, we could just sit on our hands and wait till that happens, or you could do something about it and step in.
And your fund, as you said at the beginning, is here, this whole issue of deportation and the raids and immigration is more a move towards democratization.
Absolutely.
Can you explain that to me?
It's about democracy. This is about the move to authoritarianism and fascism, and
if you protect the immigrant and if you fund rapid response teams, how are you protecting democracy, I guess is the question.
Because everyone else is next. It's the next vulnerable community. And that's how we have to protect the most vulnerable, right?
The immigrants are a canary in the coal mine?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And trans folks are a canary in the coal mine. Anyone who they can otherize and have people just pit against one another. But this, I think, ultimately is about white supremacy. They're bringing white South Africans in while they're deporting Latinos and Somalians. That's not an accident. It is absolutely about racism and white supremacy.
Do you think you turn people off when you talk like that? Not me necessarily.
I mean, the president is racist, and so is Stephen Miller. They're white supremacists.
But they would argue with you that they're not. That
Well,
this
they
has
can
nothing...
argue all they want, but their actions speak louder than their words.
So you're suggesting that their defense of their behavior is race-based and the rest of it's propaganda?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
I'm with you. I mean, I agree, obviously. I am of the understanding that they're gearing up. You've put your $1 million down on a line, and you're defending immigrants as best as you can, and you're advocating for others to do the same thing, and you're playing with the resources that you have, but they're the big, mighty federal government with 10,000 new ICE agents coming on board and amplifying this. He's talking about bringing the military in and on down the line and targeting other cities. And we have an election coming up, in months from now, where they're going to allegedly raise the volume. So what do you do now?
I mean, we trust in our brothers and sisters and our neighbors and our and people power. What do they say? You know, the revolution will not be funded. It's about people talking to people and showing up for your neighbor and doing it with love and kindness and compassion and
against
joy.
Guns and
Absolutely. And, you know...
That's your defense?
I mean, if we don't have other... we don't have as much money as the right does or the federal government does, and we're not in positions of power right now. So we use the tools that we have, and I think that love and kindness and compassion are very powerful tools against hate.
This is a very civil rights kind of ideology.
Well, it is. It's
a peace movement. You're describing a peace movement.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we've won civil rights in the past, and I think that what happened is that like we let go, right? We were very comfortable. My generation, right? I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and I think that we got a little complacent, and we didn't keep it going. And I think that we need to get back. We need to get back to that. I mean, if there were any good old days at all ever, I mean, it's the civil rights movement and the work that people were able to accomplish with nonviolence.
I mean, the civil rights movement, distilled, in my understanding, was a moral movement of how we treat each other.
Yeah,
equality, justice, you know, these kinds of terms. Yeah. There was nothing about power and greed and money and white supremacy. It's about everybody should be treated fairly.
Oh, no, but I mean, that was actually about white supremacy as well, right? I mean,
no, I'm saying, but the movement itself wasn't based on battling back those ideologies. It was more about what's just, fighting for what's just.
I think that that's the case now also, right? I think this is about morality and what is just. Like, people are not standing for it, right? Even if people voted for Trump, you see the numbers that they're just like, they've gone too far. This is not acceptable. But they put this person in power, right? They put this administration in power, because this is not just about one individual either, right? So it's taken a long time to get here.
Yeah.
And so we have to not just get back power. And so, like, for me, Earth 3 is everybody needs to learn real history.
But is Earth 3 fantasy? Because America has a history of this. America has a history of enslaving people. It has a history of running Native Americans off of their lands and basically incarcerating them on reservations. It has a history of deporting people and taking their homes so they can build Dodger Stadium in Chavez Ravine. They just took their homes and built a baseball stadium. So we've seen deportations, we've seen incarcerations. I mean, it's happened to Japanese in World War II. This is American as apple pie.
If we keep wanting to, it's also about American exceptionalism, right? Like, we want to say that America is great, and you know, there's a lot of wonderful things. Like, my parents immigrated here with next to nothing, right? And were able to work and raise a family and buy a home and buy another home, and right. So there's a lot of things that maybe they wouldn't have been able to do in their own country, and so there are opportunities. But we can. It's both and. We can do that and also not whitewash history and be realistic, because that's how we're going to start changing the minds. Because then people are shocked that we have detention camps with people, and when this is something that we've had for a very long time in our history.
Before we get to Earth 3 again, I have one more thought. To me, what I'm not hearing, and I don't know if your organization or others that you work with are talking about what the real problem is here, which is the system itself caused a population of undocumented to swell. We don't really have an immigration system where someone can step into this country and file the right papers and go to the right court system and get legalized.
Right, and we used to.
But we have this system on purpose because we want cheap labor.
Yeah, we want to exploit people.
We want people to keep their mouths shut. We want them to live in the shadows. But this is a system built by corporate America, and governments have not touched this issue for decades. So we kind of created this mess. When you're advocating on behalf of this population, I don't hear people talking about immigration reform as the solution. All I have to do is give you a piece of paper and you're legal.
Yeah, they're afraid about talking about immigration reform because of the narrative of folks are coming to take jobs from people who don't want those jobs. Nobody's standing in line to go pick strawberries.
But 10 years ago, we gave them the job.
Yeah. We gave them the job.
We're eating the strawberries, so we somehow are complicit in the way the system works. I mean,
absolutely.
Agriculture is making billions off of their backs.
And not saying a word about what's
happening.
So
they built the system.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there are folks in the administration that it really is just about white supremacy. And then there are folks who really have, drank the Kool-Aid about these people are taking our jobs, and that's why they're just kind of going along with it.
We just don't want brown people here at all, period.
We don't want brown people, we don't want black people, and we don't want Asian people here.
So what does Earth 3 look like?
I did an exercise with a group when we're talking about, and we had a hard time, this group that we were working with was having a hard time kind of pulling ourselves out of the weed to think about what aspirationally we wanted. And when I talked about having a neighborhood where kids could ride their bikes and you could hear laughter and people sitting on porches, and I mean, I know it sounds like super utopian.
No, it doesn't. It sounds like freedom.
I mean, if that's utopian, then I'm not going to apologize for it. And I think that a lot of people will hear this and just roll their eyes.
And it sounds kind of like an American dream. That is the American dream.
That is the American dream. That is the American dream.
I'm kind of hearing you say this will end someday.
I think it will. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it will end.
So then what's left for you to do in this next 8-10 months before an election? They want to accelerate. What's left for you to do? How are you going to resist, or how are you going to get people to join?
Yeah, we need to make sure that people are on the ground and out protecting their neighbors and their family members. There's an election. If they have military at polling stations, then we have people there observing. If they want to show up to neighborhoods, then we show up to neighborhoods. We've seen people push ICE out of neighborhoods, and the more people show up, I think we just keep pushing in that direction. We're outfunded, but we have more people. That's just the bottom line.
Are you finding more and more people because of what's going on in Minneapolis, because Renee Good was shot on camera,
Absolutely.
basically, who've decided to jump in?
Absolutely. So in Santa Maria, it's a little bit of a conservative city.
Mm-hmm.
Our protests are minuscule compared to Santa Barbara, that is a more progressive community. San Luis Obispo, who's a more progressive community. So our protests have been, pretty small, but the No Kings was substantial. People are coming out. It was so cute. The last protest that I was out, there was a little couple sitting next to me because they take their chairs, because this is old white folks in Santa Maria are turning out like you wouldn't believe. And when you go to the protests, that's who you see. Brown people are not at these protests. These are white folks that are coming out and making a stand because they don't know what else to do. This couple was sitting there talking about, this woman came up and she's like, "Oh, I'm so happy that you came." Like maybe they invited her to come to the protest. And she was like, "Yeah, I needed to do something." And then they asked about her husband. "Where is such and so?" And he said, "Well, I'm not ready." And that's why he couldn't go out. And so as things get worse, maybe her husband will get ready to go out and make a stand. And I've seen it. Every time there's a protest, there's more and more people who have never protested before. And then, I would hope that we can support organizations to engage these people into doing more, whether that's mutual aid, delivering food, accompanying people to court, whatever it is that they need to do, walking kids to school. And that's how everyone is going to protect one another and help one another, because people feel helpless.
So what do you need specifically? You need more people to become engaged, which is what you're saying now. Do you need more fundraising? Do you need to be
all of it? More fundraising so that we can get more money to the activists on the ground, to mutual aid, to legal defense. We need people to help patrol. We need people to help walk kids to school. We need people to deliver food. Everything. Any little thing.
Sounds desperate.
I don't think it's desperate. I think it's just an opportunity for people to connect.
I used to, as a journalist, cover failed countries, failed Latin American countries, where the government had taken over, where there was an authoritarian rule, where the people had no say because they had broken the spine of the people.
Yeah.
And the governments were ruling. Authoritarianism had won. A failed government, or a system where the government has taken over, you don't see that happening. I don't hear you talking about they're going to win and we're going to lose.
Here you see the world protesting against what is happening here in the States. The world is protesting.
You think people power is going to at least match or overcome the Trump administration?
I'm hopeful. Yes, absolutely. We still have the ability to have these conversations,
right,
relatively unafraid. I'm not afraid. Do I feel intimidated? I'm a Latina. I grew up in a household full of misogynists, in a family full of misogynists. Like, I've been intimidated all of my life, and somehow I'm still here. So, intimidation does nothing, right, except piss me off. This feels different, but I'm hopeful. I am hopeful.
I can hear that.
It's all we have sometimes. But I think that beyond hope, like I see the courage in people. I see a lot of folks that I'm working with that are the most vulnerable and have the most to lose, and they're still out there.
Right.
So if they can do it, like we can.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you for listening to The Raid, available wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about our guests and the subjects we cover, please visit our website at theraidpodcast.org.